Hello, welcome to this update on my Polish First Armor Division project. Actually, there was a lot got done this week. Well, when I say a lot, I mean a lot of small stuff, I guess. It's kind of interesting because I only had about 3 hours of project time this week, and most of the work was done the previous week, but there's small details that had to be done this week. So really what I focused on was, since all the models were built, 100% built, I went ahead and removed all the flash that I needed to, and flash or mold lines. I did actually miss a few, even on the body the first time through, so this last time I went through and got rid of all of them. Like I mentioned in the previous video, I waited to do the arms until after they were assembled. That way it was easier for me to hold on to the piece while I did it. It worked out real well that way. Now, one trick I used is I labeled the bottom of these B for Bren gun, squad 1, 2, and 3, S for a Sten gunner. I didn't didn't do first and second, but I made sure they were marked, and then the one I decided with the Lee Enfield that was going to be the Bren loader, I made sure I marked him. That way I could figure out what was going to be where. Now, the one detail part I wasn't able to work with was the bandoliers. I couldn't figure out how they fit on the model after putting on the entrenching tool and the respirator mask. So, and I haven't heard back from World War Games. I did ask them, but they just haven't gotten back to me. The bandoliers really aren't that big a deal to me because really there's only 6 pieces in the whole kit, and I've got 6 Lee Enfield guys just in this platoon here. 11 of these are Lee Enfields. So I've got way too many guys with Lee Enfields and not enough bandoliers, so I'm not going to mess with it. But I did cut out all the Lee Enfields, got them prepped. I'm going to put actually on the 8th rifles, I'll give them all the Lee Enfields with the bayonets, and for the dragoons, I'll do the ones without the bayonets. At least for this first pass, that's the plan. Now, 2 big things I worked on this week, and were the time-consuming parts, was here is the Bren, what I call the equipment bag. There we go. That bag carries the spare barrels and additional maintenance equipment on the end tools, what have you. But it only has the carrying handle on there. Okay, so what I had to do is I had to use the 1x3 strip styrene. And when I say 1x3, that's HO scale styrene. It scales out in 1/56 scale to be roughly 2 inches wide. So it's a little over wide, but since we were talking heroic, it's not that big a deal. Fitted on roughly the way it would be on the actual Bren bag. I did get a couple pictures of it, and I left them unmounted. That way I'll loop it on, and I will glue it once the model's painted. Glued in position over his shoulder, like this. Okay. So now 2 of them have that bag set up. So I kind of keep them separated because each of them was designed kind of to fit the particular model that they're on. So this one goes on this one. Alright. Now the third one, he's kneeling, so I didn't bother putting it on his shoulder. I just laid the bag right underneath him. And in this particular case, I didn't bother putting the strap on because really the strap wouldn't be too noticeable. In fact, it would likely end up being partially under the bag, so I didn't think it was that big a deal. So I omitted it from that particular piece. Now, the one thing I did spend a lot of time on was the Piat. Now, this is the, I don't know if you saw the my product review, but that's where I showed this originally. But this is the Piat. This very front section is actually a half cylinder with a ring where the actual rocket grenade sits. Okay, now you see, actually, I'm going to get the rocket grenade itself out. Okay, all right, this is the rocket here. Okay, and this actually sits inside this. Now, this particular one, I've cut the rear off because it actually fits inside the back end there. Let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. And this actually fits in there with the tip extended and just fits inside. Well, I actually intended to model that with the round inside. So I wanted to do some work. So using some drill bits, I went ahead and I hollowed out, here it is, the front. Okay, and then carved out the center so that it actually is a cylinder, so it's actually ready to receive the round. And again, to Warlord Games' credit, you can see you just fit this right inside. That's what it looks like when it's loaded. Okay, come on, focus up. There it is. See. Now, the one thing, there it is, like that. Now, I was all gung-ho ready to do this, to actually fill it in, but if you look, once you put the grenade in there, it kind of obscures the fact that it's nicely hollowed out, and it really looks different. It looks like it belongs there. You know, the cavity is open and the rocket's in place. It's harder to actually appreciate the beauty of the actual Piat weapon. So I, in the end, decided not to mount the rocket in this particular one. The second one I do, which will be with the next set of infantry I buy, I will mount that rocket in there. Now, there's another reason it's actually in my interest to not mount it. If you look at the actual Piat position, and there's a little bit of history for you guys if you're interested. When he's holding his Piat, he is essentially, you know, he's holding it in a depressed angle. Now, one of the problems the Piat had was that when the front end was lowered and such, the Piat round had a tendency to slip forward a bit and come away from the firing contacts. So it generally, you know, they tried not to fire it down. Now, if they did, they had to be very careful so they didn't jostle the round and have it shift forward. So since this guy's mounted or carrying his weapon depressed a little bit, I'll leave it empty. And the next one that I build, I'll actually have him more in a firing position where it's more level. And then I'll go ahead and mount the round in there, and it'll look better. So that is the work that I was able to get done this week. The only thing left to do really has to do with the filling in gaps around the arms. Let's see how close we can see this. I don't know how well you can see, but there's the gap around the shoulder. Let's see on this one maybe. Yeah, see right there? That gap? I need to fill that in. I'm going to use some milliput and get rid of that. So that is the next step. Now once that's done, which shouldn't honestly take long, there's not a lot of them to do that with, then it's a matter of priming them. Now I'm out of my light gray primer, which is what I usually use. So what I'm going to try in this particular case is to use Army Painter's Skeleton Bone. Now I happen to have that because of my 40K Army, but It's not as light as white, but it's also not as dark as the gray, but I think it's closer to the gray, so it should provide a good neutral undertone. And being that it's a brown, being that it's tan and all, I think it complements the earth tones of the British Infantry uniform itself. So I don't think that should be hard to paint over it and get a good look out of it. Now, I'm going to be painting these a little differently than I would any type of my 40K type miniatures. This is a scale model project, and so I want to take a slightly different approach with the painting and do it more in the terms of scale modeling. So I won't be seeing highlights. I will do a wash. Washes are always effective, just to accentuate the recesses and dull things down. But it'll be essentially a base coat with a wash. Then I'll pick out the details with the base coat again, just to I guess that's kind of close to highlighting, but not quite highlighting. But that'll be kind of as far as it goes. I'm really trying to go with a more scale model painting approach, and the styles between scale modeling and miniature painting are completely different. There actually has been a lot of blending of the two recently, but still, it's significantly different. I'm trying to get a blend of the two so that on the tabletop, these don't kind of blend into the scenery too much, but you do kind of see them as individual soldiers. So don't expect these to be kind of painted up to the level of detail where I'm picking out the highlights and everything, because a lot of it should be more subdued. This is camouflage. It's actually supposed to be kind of dirtied up, and I'm hoping to do some weathering on these as well as we go through the process. So this may take a few weeks to actually get done completely, but I should get, within the first week, I should get it at least ready for the tabletop. All things, if everything works out okay. Since we have Monday off, I should be able to get a pretty good start on this. Of course, I've got yard work and stuff to do, but that's where I'm at with this second week of this project. Hopefully in week 3 we'll get all the base coats in, and we'll be quite a long ways down. I should be able to start using it. Alright, so hope you enjoyed that. Stick around for next week to see how far I get. Alright, take care guys. Thanks for sticking with me. Share, like, and subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for whatever comes next. Bye.